serve under your chairmanship, and I'd like to thank the Petitions Committee for enabling this debate. I rise today to argue that the central purpose of the campaign for proportional representation must be to shine a light on the clear, strong and manifold causal links between the state of our broken politics and the state of our discredited voting system. The simple fact is that the British people deserve to live in an electoral system where every vote counts. Why is it that the vast majority of developed nations use proportional representation when our electorate is forced to accept second best? Why should our people be forced to accept the fundamentally flawed logic of a system whereby seats in Parliament do not reflect vote share? And why should we have to tolerate tactical voting? Polling found that on the 8th of June, 20 to 30% of the electorate voted tactically. Why should we have to put up with a system whereby almost 7 million people felt they had to hold their nose while voting? What does it say about our democracy when millions of people are going to the ballot box and to vote for the least worst option, as opposed to voting for the party or individual they feel will best represent their values, beliefs and interests in this place? Can we really sit here today in the building that is sometimes referred to as the cradle of modern democracy and defend a system that fails to pass the most basic principle of democracy, namely the right of voters to vote for the party or candidate that they actually support? But perhaps most importantly of all, why should the British people have to accept a system that delivers the winner-takes-all political culture that is the root cause of the deeply divided, polarised and fragmented country that we have become? Decades of research from around the world shows that proportional representation correlates with positive societal outcomes: greater income equality, less corporate control, better long-term planning and political stability, fairer representation of women and minorities, higher voter turnout, better environmental laws, and a significantly lower likelihood of going to war. For that is the real prize of electoral reform: to build a better politics. It is the means to shaping a more inclusive society, where resources are allocated on the basis of real needs and opportunities, rather than on the basis of cynical swing seat electoral calculations. So it should come as no surprise that polls consistently show that a majority of the public want PR. The latest poll says 67% want to make seats match votes. And they're joined by a growing alliance of parties, MPs and public figures who want real democracy. There are those that argue that the great advantage of first past the post is that it delivers strong and stable government. Well, I think the less said about that, the better. We're also told that the great danger of PR is that it will mean backroom stitch-ups. What, like the £1 billion bung for the DUP? The truth is, it is... I will give way.
I'm grateful to him for giving way. Just on the point of backroom stitch-ups, does he not also recognise that political parties under this present system are themselves coalitions? In the Conservative Party, you see the Libertarian tradition, the Patrician tradition, the Liberal Democrats, the Social Democrats, the Orange Book Liberals. Of course, in the Labour Party, we agree on everything all the time. You know, let's let the people in to some of those compromises and those choices and those trade-offs.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and he's absolutely right. I think the transparency of a more coalition-based system, whereby parties are able to clearly self-identify as parties in their own right, is a far more healthy way of running a democracy. The truth is that it is in fact first past the post that is increasingly leading to smoke-filled rooms, backstairs deals and pork barrel politics. I prefer the open politics of transparent coalition building, where parties are clear about the trade-offs that they would make in a coalition. And the public clearly does too. They like to see their politicians putting the national interest ahead of narrow party political gain. Because the public can see that our entire political culture, underpinned and compounded by our winner-takes-all electoral system, is not geared to building the broad-based political support right across the country. No, it's geared to focus on approximately 100 constituencies, the so-called battleground seats, that always... I will give way.
Thank you, Sir Roger. He talks about constituencies, but if he's talking about open politics and fairer politics, will he make it his policy, is it the Labour Party's policy, to allow the redrawing of boundaries so that they are fair in themselves?
I thank the honourable gentleman. I think the equalisation of constituencies is in principle right, but it should be on the basis of 650 MPs, particularly in the light of Brexit, where so many more responsibilities, as I'm sure the honourable member will agree, we're taking back control in this Parliament, aren't you? I'm sure he's absolutely delighted by that development, but still arguing for 600 seats doesn't really make sense. No, the system is geared to focus on approximately 100 constituencies that always tip the balance when it comes to polling day. 100 constituencies, Mr. Chairman, that hold the future of our country in their hands. 100 constituencies that drive and define our politics. 100 constituencies that can give a party with 40% of the vote the powers of an elective dictatorship. But a proportional system is genuinely representative. It forces parties to come together and build consensus around policies that advance our long-term national interest. What a refreshing change that would make following the short-term tactical party management that has driven so much decision-making in Westminster for so long. And that's why I'm so keen to point out that the campaign for electoral reform is not and must never be about partisan interests. I don't favour electoral reform because I think it will particularly benefit the Labour Party. I favour it because it is right for our country, for our economy, for our society, our people, and for our democracy. Because the campaign for electoral reform is about showing people that this is their society, and that they have a voice, and that they can shape their future. And it's in this spirit, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to finish by calling on political parties to commit to two things in their manifestos. First, an undertaking, in principle, to replace first the past the post with a more proportional system. And second, to the organisation of a constitutional convention shortly after the next general election to identify the best possible proportional system that we can implement for our country. Mr. Chairman, true radicalism is about going to the root cause of a problem, identifying the solution and building consensus for change. So let us for once be truly radical. Let us accept that our politics is broken, that our utterly discredited first-past-the-post system is preventing us from building the new political culture that our country so urgently needs.
Roberts.